Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Welcome to Money Mentors. I'm Laurel here with my husband, Taylor Stewart. Thank you for being here with us this weekend. We hope you're staying warm. Perhaps you've got a cozy fireplace going on. Whatever it is that's bringing you joy and warmth, we're so glad that you tuned in to be with us this weekend.
Oh, boy. That was fast, wasn't it? Just the chill, right? Oh, the bone-chilling cold.
Our dog, taking her outside for walks because she joins us every day here at work. So she's one of our greeters. But taking her outside is a little bit more of a chore.
Yes.
Bringing heavier jackets to work than I normally would. Normally, you just have to worry about getting from the car to inside the building, right?
Yeah.
But the midday walks have gotten a little chilly.
Bundle up just a bit more. And we're in that time of year, and we're winding down here in 2025. And a lot of today's show here on Money Mentors is going to focus on some of those year-end things that you could be doing right now to improve your financial situation. We have a lot going on here in the final several weeks here, but you still have some time to get on the calendar at Matson Financial Services, but that time is winding down quickly. So we want to encourage you this weekend. If you have questions about anything that we discuss on today's show, or you have some of those things on your to-do list that you need to get done financially here in this year, go ahead, set up that first appointment with our team off the air today at 800-536-8907, or check out more online. You can even schedule a 15-minute phone call right there with us at matsonfinancial.com. That's Matson with 2 T's, financial.com. But we've been following a lot of political drama lately in Washington, D.C., and we're going to get to more on the government shutdown and the end of it here in just minutes here, Taylor and Laurel. But in between all of the politics lately, a lot of people probably missed actually a big announcement when it comes to certain prescription drug prices. Now, President Trump announced a deal with 2 big drug makers to cut the price of some popular weight loss drugs like Zepbound and Wegovy starting in 2026 through a government direct-to-consumer website.
Americans deserve the best health care in the world, and we're now getting the best health care at the lowest price.
So apparently this deal will also allow Medicare and Medicaid coverage for these drugs as well. And I know we're at that time of year when a lot of your clients and our listeners are going over their options when it comes to health care for the upcoming year, including their prescription drugs too. So how big of a deal are those prescription costs in that retirement budget when you're looking at that with them?
Well, I have to say, just like yay for negotiations, right? That put more
huge
money in our pocket.
2 down, thousands to go.
Right. Yeah. Probably not enough yet, but we'll take them as we can get them. Healthcare, it's kind of crazy because it's really one of the biggest variables in retirement. And really, the cost of it is rising faster than general inflation. And I don't think there's enough conversation around how that impacts a retirement plan. Typically, people will meet with financial advisor. Here's the income I need, and here's how we're going to invest it. And boom, you got your investment plan. You've got your retirement plan. It's done. However, there are so many pieces to the 5 pillars that we like to talk about here at Matson Financial. And yes, that's investments and income, but the other 3 are healthcare, legacy, and taxes. And they all play such a crucial piece of this. And when we talk about healthcare in general, a lot of people don't understand when they sign up for Medicare, they think, it covers everything, right? But really, there are so many other pieces that you still have to pay for: premiums, copays, dental, vision, supplements. And what is this going to cost you year over year, right? That's where this has to really be a part of your plan so we can project these costs into your retirement plan, not just for the year, but the next, 25, 30 years. And it changes so much, right? We felt this government shutdown and what's going to happen with Medicare and what's going to happen with Marketplace recently. And it's crazy, but it's kind of becoming the norm. So that's why we have Medicare Matt here, and we look at your plan every year, right? We're going to look at this just to make sure, are you on the right coverage that you need for what's happened with your health the last year? But also, what about your prescription drug coverage? What do you need there? And then lastly, maybe there's some subsidies we can go after, but that then goes back to, you probably have to watch your income limits a little bit more, which means your financial advisor needs to be involved. So instead of you being the client and trying to chase all of these things, moving targets constantly, We are the ones that are being proactive here, not reactive, and making sure the strategy is in place and you don't have these kind of questions lingering. You just feel confident to know, hey, they're all talking about it and I don't have to worry about it.
And that's a huge piece of what you do for your clients there at Matson Financial Services. For our listeners, we're going to tell you more in just moments here about how you can get your own complimentary consultation there with Matt at Matson Financial Services. Again, that applies for you too. If you're even on the exchange right now, we know a lot's happening with that in terms of what Congress is going through right now. So a lot of people have questions about this right now. And obviously, it's because of the government shutdown over these last several weeks. And Taylor, Laurel, while it seems politicians have reached this temporary compromise to get things going again, so we don't have to worry about maybe as many holiday travel delays at least, there is no doubt a lot of people have had their livelihoods impacted by this shutdown that lasted quite a while here. So I know one federal worker who does well, but it did make them really uncomfortable, they said, to dip into their emergency savings so much during this time, not knowing if they would actually get that money back because of all the political threats there. So I guess this is kind of how it feels, though, for people heading into retirement, too. Going without a paycheck, I mean, that's a really scary thing, not knowing how you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, and especially if it's all on you.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be going into retirement without a paycheck, right? But that paycheck does look different, right? It's coming from your investments or your Social Security, or maybe you're lucky enough to have a pension. And this is a conversation I have to have with folks almost every time I meet with them right before they retire, is just that last little bit of fear, hey, we feel really good about this now, and then 6 months from now, we feel a little uneasy just because of the income changes, or we don't want to call and take a lump sum distribution because the washer and dryer machine broke on us and we need some additional money. And I say, that's why we're going to meet very frequently after you retire, because we need to adjust that income. We need to figure out and settle into where that's comfortable for you. And we've built this income plan with these cost of living adjustments, with adjustments for healthcare costs, for extra buffers in your income, because we know life happens and things are going to come up. But it is an emotional shift that I always say, typically the first 6 to 9 months into retirement, it is that switch in your brain that has to flip to understand things are going to be okay. And really, I see the most relief coming out of those appointments with clients when we've got these written income plans and they can see, hey, we've really planned for all of these different things. All you have to do is enjoy retirement and keep us posted and up to speed on what's changing in your life. And obviously, we're going to do the same.
Absolutely. Like Taylor talked about, we're going to build this income plan so it really mimics a paycheck, right? A steady, structured stream of income, because that's what you're used to while you're working. It should be the same in retirement so you can continue living comfortably and confident. We don't want you worrying because we know there's ups and downs, red and green, every day with the markets or what's going on with the government. So rest assured, we can kind of look at it from a really big view, 30,000-foot view of, I have steady income coming in. I have a tax plan. I have a health insurance plan. All of these things are happening for me. So I can kind of disassociate with what that is feeling from the day to day.
Yeah. But it can be a little bit uncomfortable. And actually, you encourage people, even in retirement, to also still have that emergency savings bucket too, right? And that can kind of be segregated from the rest of their retirement savings?
Absolutely. We always recommend 90 days up to 6 months worth of your every month expenses set aside. That way, if something major comes up and we need it in the short term, we can get it. But I always encourage my clients, if something comes up, before you just go ahead and pull it from that emergency savings account, give us a call. Let's talk through it, because, we've been in a really good market here for the last couple of years. We've had a really good run. We've got a lot of earnings that we've pulled and put into that income bucket for these kind of rainy day opportunities or emergencies that come up. So in some cases, I'll tell folks that, hey, you've got 6 months worth of emergency savings. Sure, you could take that $10,000 for the car repairs and the new furnace from your emergency fund that you already have at the credit union or the bank, but we've got it. It's not going to affect your tax plan. Let's go ahead and pull it now. That way, if another emergency comes up, you still have that short-term cash. So we're always still going to look, is there a place in the portfolio that we should pull it from before we dwindle down some of that emergency savings?
Yeah.
And also we'll talk about, too, when it comes to your savings, a lot of times people have a dollar amount that they're just used to, right, and they're comfortable with. And we're okay with that. We just want to make sure that this money is working as hard as you did for it. And if you have a lot of money on hand with your emergency funds or savings, make sure it's put into an interest-bearing account, right? You're getting your 4%. Have this conversation with your credit unions. There's some around here locally, but also as interest rates get cut, right? And what we're seeing is happening, this does affect those accounts. And so once we start seeing these go down to maybe 2 or 3%, now you're just getting change in your bank account. So we might want to look at how do we restructure that so it's still safe. Maybe you're still getting market ups, but you also have 100% protection on the downside. Once again, all back to, does this make sense for your goal? You have your comfortable amount in your emergency funds, but is this money working as hard as you did for it? If not, we got to figure that out.
And a lot of times when it comes to at least the local banks and credit unions that I'm aware of, is as we see interest rates come down, that short-term money, those money markets and CD rates are going to be some of the first things that drop rates as well, right?
See them on the billboards already, you know?
Yeah, but a lot of times they'll also price match. So even if it's an online bank, I've had folks that, we were getting a good interest rate at our credit union. It's come down a little bit. We scour the internet and say, hey, American Express is offering a 4.25% high yield savings. Take that into your bank and they'll adjust that more than likely.
Okay.
So it may take a little, it might take a little bit of extra legwork, but a 5-minute Google search and you can find some pretty good rates out there to take in and negotiate with your local bank. Because we all know nobody wants to switch banks.
Right.
It's a pain in the butt. So if we can negotiate, that's a good thing.
I'm going to use that one. I just got that email notice on my account too, so I might have to use that little tip there. But I think right now too, everything that's happening, whether you're talking about the interest rate cuts, the government shutdown, the Medicare and healthcare exchange changes that are taking place right now, a lot of people are looking for more certainty in their own financial plans. So for our listeners out there today who are wondering about how all of this affects them and their retirement, how can they get started with us at Mattson Financial?
If you save $250,000 or more and want to know what your retirement paycheck looks like, be one of the first 5 callers right now. Call 800-536-8907 for your complimentary Mattson Map visit.
And we think you're going to get a lot of confidence by just looking at what that map looks like for you based on what you've saved for retirement. So take advantage of that offer this weekend with us and talk to our great team members off the air today at 800-536-8907. That's 800-536-8907. Or go over some of those initial questions with us by setting up that 15-minute phone call through our website at MattsonFinancial.com. But next, how does tax loss harvesting work? We'll tell you more about that. And is it possible to save too much for retirement? We'll get into that next year as Money Mentors continues on Wood Radio.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
Thanks for checking out the Money Mentors podcast. Your Money Mentors this week, Laurel Stewart, president of Mattson Financial Services, along with her husband, Taylor Stewart, all trying to stay warm.
I just need sun. I don't even care about the warmth. If I could have
the sun is
every
a
day,
game changer.
it's glistening on the snow. It looks sparkly. That brings so much joy.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of beautiful sunrises at our house. And so when it's gray, it's not
It's
quite
just
as
depressing.
pretty.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
hard to
have
get
6
going.
months of it. Check back on me in February. Let's hear what I'm going to be saying.
and now too, when it was gray and the leaves were still on, it was one thing. But now that we, had some snow and some weather, a lot of those leaves are gone. So now it really is just gray.
It's even
gray,
more
gray.
depressing. I don't like it.
Yes.
But it'll be hot in 6 months again, right?
That's true.
6? Nah. But I thought
lucky.
about putting up, it's not a UV light. I
It's
don't
like
know
those
what it is.
daylight desk things that we're
Yeah.
talking
Oh,
about.
yeah,
My dad
yeah.
has one at his desk, which made me laugh when he
So
told
as
me
clients
that,
come
but-
in and they take a peek, in my office, if they see this, I'm not tanning. I'm just trying to get all the vitamin D I can get.
Yeah. Hey, I think that's a great idea. We might need it this time of year for sure. I'm up for just trying about anything because
Yes.
these gray, gloomy days, it's really no fun. But I also do know that you're busy there at the office this time of year too. As the leaves come down, it is actually harvesting season at Mattson Financial too. We're talking about tax loss harvesting for you guys. Now, it is something that Morningstar's Christine Benz says could actually benefit a lot of us come tax time.
The strategy can be super beneficial if you have taxable holdings that have fallen in value since you purchased them. So they're trading below your cost basis. If you sell them, you can book the loss and you can use that loss to offset capital gains elsewhere in your portfolio. If you don't have capital gains, you can use them to offset up to $3,000 in ordinary income.
So how important is this step to go over the winners and the losers in your portfolio to take advantage of this type of strategy?
You know, it can be very effective, especially if you do have a big non-qualified balance. It doesn't even have to be big, a non-qualified balance. If you've got only IRAs and Roth IRAs, it's not going to affect your taxable income whatsoever. But I've got a client specifically, I was just working on this for a couple weeks ago. She had a bunch of older municipal bonds. They were still paying great tax-free income, but they had greatly fallen out of favor. And there were some pretty substantial losses there. And so I said, well, let's take a look at this and see what we can generate by offloading these and essentially replacing them with newer issue municipal bonds. And we were essentially able to achieve very similar interest rate, but we were able to lock in a pretty, it sounds funny to say this, but a pretty big loss against some substantial capital gains that we knew she had already accumulated in the transition over. She had some mutual funds that we didn't get rid of, but every year are going to realize some capital gains and reset that basis. So we were able to really save tens of thousands of dollars in taxable income. Wow. And essentially it was a like-for-like switch. It didn't change her income, her spendable income from those municipal bonds. And we were able to save her tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. So it can be pretty substantial. What I would caution folks, though, is if you're going to realize a larger loss for tax purposes, it's best to be used against your capital gain. Because if you carry that forward, like she had mentioned, you can only use a $3,000 deduction against your ordinary income. That's probably not enough to really move the needle.
Right.
If you realized $30,000 of loss, you might be using that $3,000 to offset your ordinary income for the next 10 years, right? That's not nearly as impactful as it could be in the short term if we're going to harvest that against some gains.
Yeah. But I think the key is right, we're talking about our advisors and like Taylor's team and our other advisors here. They're looking at these with our clients and making sure that we're strategically realizing losses, but done very thoughtfully, right? Because not every year do we always have winners. Not every year maybe are there losers, right? But that goes back to our philosophy and making sure you feel confident that where your money is at has a philosophy, an active management strategy to say, what do you do when markets are up? What do you do when markets are down? There are going to be different things along the way because we're diversified, right? We don't have too much, in one area. But the other part about this is we're looking at the long-term efficiency with plans. Back to, something I talked about earlier in the show was one of the 5 pillars here that we're focusing on is tax. And if you don't have a lot of conversation with your advisor, we're really missing out on the opportunity of what this could do for not only you, but perhaps, going to money after you, to charities, to kids, to grandkids. Yeah. And so we really want to focus on this, and we now have an in-house tax preparer who looks at all of this with our clients. So we're super excited to have that added value for our clients.
I feel like there should be like a round of applause.
I know.
That's huge. We've been
I wish
waiting
I had
for this for
confetti
years.
going off, right? But we just have found time and time again that even some really great investors, multimillionaires, have come to us because they had a CPA who just simply was their tax filer, right? Yeah, you take that 1040, you do anything. Like, how can we not look at a bigger plan here, right? It's not a one time a year in March or April. This is a constant conversation because the goal isn't to just grow your money, it's to keep more of what you earn.
Absolutely. That is what it's all about at Mattson Financial Services. And this is why they go over these strategies with their clients. If you haven't taken a look at tax loss harvesting and taken a look at the winners and losers in your portfolio, this is the kind of year where you want to do that. Certain sectors, certain stocks are doing really well. Others might have taken a little bit of a beating, so it might be a great time to do that. But for our listeners who really want that advisor who's also taking a look at that tax side of things for them, how can they get started and come in and see what you do for your clients?
If you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, you can call now. Be one of the first 5 callers for a complimentary conversation with our team here at Mattson Financial. You can contact us at 800-536-8907 so we can talk about your investments, but let's look at this through a tax lens. Again, 800-536-8907.
And when you call in today, you're talking to an actual team member right here in West Michigan at Matson Financial Services. We do not send you to a call center for these conversations. You're talking to someone right there at the office who knows, hey, what do I need to bring on that first visit? They're going to talk to you about, what are your major concerns? What are the things you really want to cover on those first visits to get really the most out of it? And you can do that right now off the air. 800-536-8907. Or simply visit our website when you get to wherever you're going this weekend at matsonfinancial.com and click that Schedule Now button to schedule a conversation there. That's Matson with 2 T's, financial.com. Well, let's face it, for most Americans these days, it's a question of whether or not they've saved enough for retirement. But for some, it actually might be a question of whether they've saved too much. That's what one reader recently asked Kiplinger about. He says he's actually saved $7.8 million for his own retirement and felt like he oversaved for those years when he got there. And then he sees his 40-year-old son on the same path. So how does someone know if they're kind of overdoing it when it comes to saving?
I've had plenty of meetings where I'm meeting with folks and they're just wondering if they can retire, if they've saved enough. And then we have that second meeting where we're delivering the plan, going over the income reports and the various different scenarios that we've outlined there. When should we take our pension or Social Security? How much should we take in income? And say, I don't want to say that you've oversaved, but you've oversaved, right? Like
Yeah.
you can absolutely retire very comfortably. In fact, you can do a lot more things than you thought you were going to be able to. College education for your grandkids was a big priority, or a major family trip. Taking the whole family on a trip each year is a big priority, and we're going to be able to do those things. But you ultimately don't know until you start putting the numbers together, and it really depends on what's your expenses? What's your critical income need, the money you need every month to cover those bills? What about your lifestyle and some of the other dreams, goals, and desires you have? Once we get that information, then we can start building that plan to say, look, have you saved enough? Have you saved too much? I think most people would argue that it's impossible to save too much, right? Because you're going to just pass it on to your kids and grandkids. But ultimately, it just gives you options, right? And so it really starts with sitting down, building that income plan, and getting to know you as the client coming through the door, and what are your unique dreams, goals, and desires look like, and how can we maintain that lifestyle through retirement?
Yeah, balance is key in anything, right? And so we find, we help clients find that balance between protecting their legacy, but actually enjoying the fruits of their work. And so if you actually look at oversaving, it could create tax headaches later. And you're like, what? And that's what we're kind of talking about is, what about required minimum distributions, estate taxes, gifting limits? Those things can reduce what your family ultimately keeps. So you might think, hey, I'm keeping more of this over here because when I pass, then they get X. But what type of taxation then is going to be triggered by doing it the way that you have it currently set up? So I think it's just really key to make sure you're getting a second opinion. You're asking questions. It's good to poke holes at things, right?
Yeah.
To see how it works. Same with a doctor, right? If you go to the doctor and you get an answer about something, you're probably not going to take it 100% for what it is. You're probably going to want to do some more research, get a second opinion, and make sure that's right. That's what we're here to do, is be that resource and make sure you have really great tax efficiency with your retirement plan.
I think a key part of this scenario here as well is reading through, and there's a couple points, which is Fidelity says the average account holder at the age of 60 in 2025, their 401k was valued at $255,000. Now, in 2022, the Consumer Finances says that 3 years ago, the average retirement savings balance among Americans aged 65 to 74 was $609,000.
Woof.
This fella's at 65 and's got $7.8 million, right?
Yeah.
So that was some serious dedication to
Right.
saving over that time frame. But with that dedication, probably came with a lot of things that they didn't do. Those family vacations, or buying that lake house, or
Crazy
various
car purchases,
Yeah.
right? Those things didn't happen. We have a lot of these individuals locally too, really good, savvy savers.
100%, and they're almost a little bit afraid to spend it, right? Because they don't know if they have enough or if they've saved too much. But I just caution people, sit down, get that complimentary plan, sit down with a fiduciary advisor, and figure out where you sit, because you might be missing out on a lot of life experiences today by saving too much for retirement because you've already done such a good job. And tomorrow's not given, right? So
Yeah.
we want to make sure we take advantage and do those fun things today as well. We can't just save and save and save just for our retirement because, frankly, some folks just don't make it there. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we can do those things today as well.
So let's make sure the key here is knowing your number, right? That's what it's all about. And we're happy to help you here at Matson Financial put that plan together through our Matson map so you know what your number is and how to go about saving in the future or what fun things are on the roadmap.
That map's going to show you how to find that balance between, again, saving for the future, enjoying today. And a lot of times people are pleasantly surprised by what you figure out in those first meetings at Matson Financial. And it's why we offer that complimentary to our listeners here so you can really figure out where you stand and get started on that planning process. So do that with us during the break here. Again, you can pick up the phone, talk to one of our team members now at 800-536-8907, or take advantage of our many retirement resources right there through our website at matsonfinancial.com. That's Matson with 2 T's, financial.com. But up next, getting you to your retirement destination efficiently. We'll get into that next after the news right here on Wood Radio. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Money Mentors Podcast.
I don't know about you two, but one of the biggest frustrations I think for me as a driver is just sitting at a red light forever when there's absolutely no traffic coming from the other directions. Nothing's more frustrating than wasting time for no reason. Well, it's interesting. Researchers at the University of Michigan, I know you're more Michigan State people, but I actually approve of what they're doing here at Michigan.
Yep. We still root for them. With this. If they're not playing Michigan State, we're
exactly,
good.
Yes. So,
especially if they're playing Ohio State.
Well, we'll get behind the engineers here because they're getting some national attention for their work on this very subject. Engineering school researcher Gary Petrovich says they've actually had success with a pilot program there that uses data from cloud-connected cars to help cities go back and update the timing on their traffic lights based on real-time traffic patterns.
What it allows us to do is allow us to update the signals more often. So instead of maybe once every 5 years or more, now we can take a look at this maybe every few months to make sure that we have the best timings out there in the system that makes the system the most efficient. Even if we don't change the timings, it will confirm to us that what's out there is the best. It really benefits the motorist.
Game changer.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he actually says it's cutting traffic congestion by 20 to 30% in just one city where they've actually tried this out. So as I was listening to what they're doing here on this traffic light signal kind of restructuring here, it reminds me of what you do with the Matson map that we talk about here on the show. I mean, sometimes you can actually help our listeners get to their retirement destination a lot more efficiently, a lot faster, just by collecting some data on those first visits and then updating that map frequently with them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's our goal, is to put together a guide, but also have so much clarity, because we're going to take the data, we're going to take your goals and, financial milestones, and we're going to chart a route. And then from there, you're going to be set and sail. Everything's going great. And then there's going to be construction, right? Something's going to come up or a roadblock, and we have to veer left or right. That's just our everyday life now, whether it's our health or our family that's impacting these changes, kids and grandkids, or perhaps there are external things like government and other things that are really out of our control, but we have to adapt to those laws and regulations. And so we're going to find a new way, and we're going to move forward. And that's why this isn't a one-time, hey, we put this plan together, boom, it's done, we're on to the next person, and you're on and you're set sailing. That's impossible, right? This is about a relationship, and we're going to keep making sure that we're having conversations and get to know you more and more and more, and make sure your plan is consistently doing what you need to do and adapting as life changes.
I always kind of say that the planning process, back to your point, like it's not a sit it, forget it. Oh, we're done with it. You can put it up on the shelf. We're so proud of ourselves, right? It's more like planting a garden, right? In the spring, we've got to work the soil. We've got to maybe add some fertilizer. We've got to plant our seeds, and we've got to weed and continue to fertilize and water. And then we've got a dry summer or a wet summer. And so the seasons are going to really change how you're going to tend to that garden, just like your retirement plan, right? What's happening with the big beautiful bill may change some of the tax plan that we're doing. What's happening with the government shutdown and subsidies may change the approach that we take to the health insurance side of your retirement plan. So we're going to constantly be looking at it. We're never one and done. And frankly, we build in a lot of very conservative reports. That way we can make sure that if something, internal change or an external change happens to you, we can adjust and make sure that it doesn't derail your plan, because we've kind of thought through all of the things that could possibly happen. How are we going to address them? And we've got that already set up in your plan so we can accommodate moving forward.
And that's why we have all of these tools and support and everything when it comes, anything you think of retirement, that's what we're here to help at Mattson Financial, all under one roof, right? When it comes to taxes, income, investments, your health plans, your legacy plans, because we want to be really that trusted one-stop resource for you. So you're not thinking, oh my gosh, I have to call my, health insurance Medicare agent to talk about my new prescription drug coverage. Right. I have to call my CPA or tax preparer to see how much, am I going to pay in taxes this year? Do they then call my advisor? How long, before my advisor has these reports and gets back to? I mean, it's just like a constant circus, really, if you have to be the driver of all of that. So that's why we're here. That's what makes our process unique, is it's a continuous guidance, not a one-time plan, and less worry on you.
I think most of us, though, when we're saving for retirement, getting ready for those years, you're just kind of on autopilot. You're saving in your accounts. You're doing your thing. But when you actually kind of get to that stoplight where you're thinking about making that decision to retire, that's when you need that extra help, because there are so many issues that are thrown at you for the very first time. And you do need some help in mapping that out. So for our listeners who are, up against one of those decisions, that retirement's on the horizon, how can they get started with us this weekend?
If you're 5 years or less away from retirement, be one of the first 5 callers today. Let's create your Mattson map and start designing your income route. Call 800-536-8907.
All right, be one of those 5 callers right now. Take advantage of our special offer this weekend here on Money Mentors and see what that route looks like for you. Again, that number is 800-536-8907. 800-536-8907. Or just go online and set up a 15-minute phone call with our team right there at MattsonFinancial.com. Well, sometimes today you get to a point in your career where you want to change directions, maybe switch jobs. But before you do that, think about this. Yahoo Finance says many workers today could lose as much as $60,000 in retirement savings over the course of time just by not understanding how vesting works with their 401k plans. Why is it so important to know that schedule before you make that job switch?
This one is pretty big. So roughly 44% of 401k plans offer immediate full vesting of your company's match, but that means the majority, over half of them, don't, which means they're on a vesting schedule. The vesting schedule means they might put that contribution in today, but you're not fully vested for, let's say, 5 years. Mm-hmm. And is that 5 years from the start of your employment? Or is that 5 years from that last contribution? So a lot of times we'll see if we're getting ready to roll over a 401k or somebody's getting ready to retire, it's like, hey, let's push this retirement date back by 2 months. You're going to be vested in another $10,000. And they say, well, what do you mean? I thought it was all mine. Well, it is all yours as long as you meet that vesting schedule. So it is important to take a peek at. It's very important to know how that vesting works. Is it from an employment date? Is it from the last contribution date? Typically, if it's from the last contribution date, unless they make their contribution once a year, so it is a substantial contribution, that one's not as big of a deal because it might be, that last month's contribution from 5 years ago that was $200 or $300, right? Uh-huh. But if you move jobs a bunch of different times and you leave $1,000 on the table here and 2 there, 5 here, then it can absolutely add up. Mm-hmm. And then you start looking at the compound growth on that money over that period of time, and it can be substantial.
And that's free money, right? That matching contribution from your employer. So you want to make sure that you're going at it the right way, right? Timing a career move carefully can obviously make a huge difference. So what we do here at Mattson Financials, we're going to make sure when you sit down, like Taylor said, we're going to go over these things, but we're also going to have our team actually call with you on the line to kind of guide you through what questions to ask to make sure we have all of the answers and clarity before we ever do anything. We can't make any recommendations without understanding what's yours, when is it accessible, because we don't want to put you in a worse off position. So we will actually actually take on that call and care for you so you can understand what's yours, what's still vesting, and how to roll everything over correctly, because we don't want you to leave that free money behind when you change jobs or retire.
And sometimes just leaving it there, after you change a job, that's not a good thing either necessarily. You could also lose a lot of money just based on the fees on that account if you don't roll it over to something like an IRA. But a lot of people, they don't just take these steps. They don't even look at this or even consider this when they make a job change. Why do you think that is?
I think it's out of sight, out of mind. It's in an account. It's invested still.
And nobody's talking about it with them.
Right. Nobody's talking about it. There's been plenty of times I've met with folks where there's 3 or 4 old 401ks out there of various different amounts, because they had switched jobs.
Wow.
And it's like, well, number one, it's a lot harder to track. It's 5 different logins you got to keep track of, 5 different accounts. And if you're RMD age, it's 5 different RMDs that you have to take too. So there's a lot of considerations to think about when it comes to, should we consolidate those 401ks? And if we're going to do that, should we consolidate it to the 401k plan I have at work now? Or should we consolidate it to an IRA outside where maybe we can reduce our fees and we can also broaden the horizon as far as what investment options are available to you?
Right.
So that's something that we're definitely going to look at in considering any sort of rollover with anybody that comes through the door.
And think about it too. If you're leaving that money behind, just for the sake of leaving it without having a conversation, a strategy as to why, you're paying a management fee. Even if you're not meeting with that person or hearing from them, they're taking a fee. And also there are expense ratios with mutual funds that could be added on top of what that fee is. So you might get your statement, you see your fees, being deducted, etc. And you don't really see all the expense ratios adding up. That's stuff that's more so in the legal jargon, the bigger paperwork side of things. So those are what we call hidden fees. Could be the 12B1 fees, all of those things. So back to, Jennifer's question of why it's best to not leave it there blindly is because somebody's still getting a paycheck for not doing anything to help you move the needle, and especially have that money managed towards a specific goal. That's the key, because you've moved on from it. It's now not being actively managed. So what is it doing? If it's in a target date fund, I don't love them, because as you get older, it gets more conservative naturally. And you just really lose out on having this control of back to diversification and making sure also what happens when markets are up. Are you harvesting? And what happens when markets are down? Instead, that's more of a set it and forget it play. And that's not a winning strategy in today's day and age.
For sure. But it's easy, especially as much as a lot of us, change jobs today. So it's a lot different from our parents and our grandparents' generation when you might have worked for a company for 20, 30 years or even your entire career. So don't leave these accounts behind. And for the team at Matson Financial Services, they recognize too that you might need some help with those workplace accounts. That's why they've set up a 401k account management program. This can help even some of our younger savers out there. So if you want to learn more about that, how to do those rollovers, go over those kinds of questions, feel free to reach out to our team too at 800-536-8907 and ask more about that Matson 401k account management program. Again, that's 800-536-8907. But coming up next, what you need to know about next year's tax brackets. We have the numbers for you. It's coming up next as Money Mentors continues on Wood Radio.
Getting you not just to, but through retirement. This is the Money Mentors Podcast.
Hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks so much for making us a part of it here on Money Mentors. They are Laurel and Taylor Stewart of Matson Financial Services. We invite you to get to know your money mentors. You can do so in a couple of different ways. Online anytime at matsonfinancial.com. You can check out the Money Mentors podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Or, of course, you can always come in and get to know the people that you hear on the radio every weekend. Just schedule a visit with our team off the air today at 800-536-8907. As we wrap up 2025, I know a lot of us are focused on just this tax year, maybe wrapping up some of those decisions. But if you're one of those who really likes to plan ahead, the IRS has actually released next year's tax brackets and standard deductions as well. So Yahoo Finance's Carrie Hannon says it could mean good news for a lot of people based on the adjustment for inflation.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you may actually end up paying slightly less because if you earned the same amount in 2024 and 2025, due to this adjustment in the inflation index, the new brackets, and they bumped up that standard deduction. So you may actually pay a little bit less.
I know these numbers change every single year, so I guess that's why it's so important to sit down with your team, see what's changed with your personal tax strategy, especially when it does impact your retirement so much.
Absolutely. That's something that we look at in every single meeting. And, when they passed the big, beautiful bill, which kind of extended what we had going on with obviously increases for inflation, we were happy because, we were kind of coming into the year thinking, oh boy, this is the crunch time for these big Roth conversions that we're trying to do and these other big tax saving strategies. We really need to accomplish it this year. So that was a nice relief for us. And
my gosh, we've been talking about it for years, which actually is, I think, the crazier thing. I remember being like, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, it's 1 year, it's the year, you know?
And that was 7 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah,
always talking about taxes.
But that's why we don't just think about taxes in April, right? This is an all year round thing, like Tay said, every single meeting. And by doing this, by reviewing where your income lands, within each bracket, we help identify opportunities for Roth conversions, like Taylor was talking about. What about charitable gifting or income timing to make sure this keeps you more efficient? I mean, I think about it with charitable gifting. There's so many times where we might meet with a client and they tithe to a church or a foundation, but also maybe their RMD age, required minimum distribution age. Well, it's like, hey, let's make sure we're really being strategic about this. We could do some QCDs, qualified charitable and distributions, and make sure you're satisfying your required minimum distribution, but also you still get to gift to your charities and things that are important to you. And also income timing is huge because, perhaps you have something big coming up, a large purchase. And so like this time of year, instead of taking all of it today, well, maybe we send a portion of it today. So then for 2025's year, it stays in this certain income, tax bracket. But then next year, a portion of it is going, to you still just a few months apart, but we're still keeping an eye on those income brackets to make sure we're not blowing it up.
Yeah. And I think this is so important because as I was looking over the different brackets here, Laurel, some of them end in 001, at the last three digits of the income.
Yes.
And I think, oh my goodness, what if you were just one of those people? I mean, I'm sure it happens, right? Where you just went a single dollar over,
yes.
Right?
They don't care. They're not going to say, oops, here you go, try again. They're like, hey, now you're going from, 15 to 22, that extra 7% on that dollar. And that's very true. And I think about that, with how that relates to health insurance, because if somebody's receiving a subsidy, and that means they have income limits. If that health insurance agent is not communicating with the advisor or the client in between of all of that, and you end up calling your financial advisor because you need money, but didn't think that your Medicare agent needed to know, well, you just blew up your supplemental plan and now you got to pay your subsidy. Yeah. You got to pay all of that back. Once again, it's not an oopsie, we'll help you out. It's really hard. I mean, that comes back to why we have such an integrated approach, from our in-house tax professional to our in-house Medicare and marketplace health insurance agent, because we want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks, because all these little adjustments now can lead to very meaningful tax savings later, especially when retirement income sources shift. So we always have our eye on all of these different pillars to make sure you have a great retirement strategy in place.
And in case our listeners missed it earlier, you've taken it even a step further there at Matson Financial Services in looking at that tax picture for your clients. What's that additional step you've just recently taken, Laurel?
Yes. So we're so excited to announce that we now have an in-house tax professional. So we're super happy to have Maggie as a part of our team. And so she actually is able to prepare taxes, right? But also there's this bit of how do we make sure we're constantly planning, right? So our advisors are having conversations, about Roth conversions and tax loss harvesting and what we should be doing. But then she gets to see it on the other end too, and making sure we have this balanced approach. And so we're not missing anything. And we get to have some planning conversations behind the scenes on your behalf. So that's really an added value piece to make sure we're looking at all angles of your retirement plan, but you truly have a tax lens as every piece of your investment plan.
And not to say you wouldn't work with someone's existing accountant
Correct.
or CPA,
yep,
right?
We absolutely do that. So we have some great clients who have those relationships for years with, a CPA or an EA, and that's great, right? We'll be so happy to plug in, keep you in communication in the loop, but we're still going to try to be this driving force on your behalf to have some checks and balances because we don't want any surprises come tax time, right? And we want to make sure that there's a lot of clarity around this table so you as the client don't have to own this communication piece because because you should be enjoying retirement, enjoying what you've worked so hard for, and entrusting our fiduciary team here at Mattson Financial to really help you with this retirement plan and seeing it through.
I think this is so key because we've talked about it for years. As Taylor mentioned, we've been talking about specifically the most recent tax cuts since 2017, but this can be a huge difference maker when it comes to your retirement savings in terms of how much our listeners, your clients, get to keep for their retirement years. And yet so many firms only talk to you about, investment returns. Tax savings can actually be the bigger piece of someone's retirement savings. This can actually add more value to someone's plan, what you do on the tax side of things.
Absolutely. And because honestly, right, if your investments are going up as they should be, that's great. But if there's no tax strategy tied to it, then really, as you take income out or you approach required minimum distribution age, you're now dealing with a tax bomb situation that you're not controlling the taxes are controlling you because there was no forethought, right? You have all of your multi-million dollars, let's say, in an IRA. That's all taxable. You have to take a percentage out once you're 73 every year. And as your accounts grow and as you age, that percentage is going to increase. Hence why we call it a tax bomb, because then it's like, whoa, it's out of control. Nobody's talking to me about this. So rather, if we can look at, Roth conversion strategies, maybe that's best for your plan today, that, charitable giving plan, but also if you're set today, and we've dealt with this with a client recently, she is single, widowed, actually. She's got a great amount of investments for her. We just needed to change how it was set up and the taxation behind it, because at the end of the day, when she passes, that amount of money goes on to her kids and grandkids. But the taxation on that piece is huge, right? And that comes back to, you want to make sure you're keeping more of your hard-earned money, not going to the government unplanned. So if we change this around and we have some Roth conversion strategies in here, Roth conversions or Roth IRAs, once you pay the tax on it, that grows tax-free. Right. And so that should grow exponentially. And also from that standpoint, then you don't have this taxation piece to your kids and grandkids as that passes. So you really want to look at this from your lens. Obviously, you first, making sure we're investing towards your goals. But after we get that completed, what does the legacy piece look like? Is that passing money on to kids and grandkids or charities? Or maybe at the end of the day, you're like, you know what, Mattson Financial, I don't want to give anything. I want to spend it all. That's okay too. But let's have these conversations. Let's make sure there's some really great planning in here focused on taxes, because every dollar you take out of your 401k, your IRA, is going to have tax tied to it. So let's make sure we're controlling that conversation.
We're in a great tax planning sweet spot this time of year because we know this year's tax rates. We know next year's tax brackets right now. You have some time right now while you know what this year's income looks like, while you're doing some charitable giving. You can talk about Roth conversions for this tax year and get ahead for next year too. So for our listeners out there, Laurel, who'd like to start this conversation with you at Mattson Financial Services, how can they get on the calendar?
Yes, you can be one of those first 5 callers at 800-536-8907, because we're going to sit down here at Mattson Financial, help you design your personalized Mattson map, and we're going to focus on this retirement plan for your income, your investments, taxes, health, and legacy, all under one roof. So be one of those first 5 callers right now.
Again, that number is 800-536-8907. One of our great team members will be standing by for a few minutes after today's show. They'll give you that checklist of the things that might be helpful to bring on that first visit to get the most out of it. But you can reach out now. Again, that number, 800-536-8907. Or if you're driving right now, just remember our website this weekend. You can always reach out there too at mattsonfinancial.com and simply set up that 15-minute phone call there to go over some of those initial questions. That's Mattson with 2 T's, financial.com. And of course, join us here again next weekend for more lessons right here with your Money Mentors.
At Mattson Financial, our mission is simple: to help you and the people you love retire with confidence. Because retirement isn't the finish line, it's the next chapter in your story.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.